Akashvani. In the program Money Talk, we now bring you a discussion on global financial inclusion efforts under India's G20 presidency. The participants are Sharat Kohli, economic analyst, and Anubha Rohatgi, anchor.
Only a couple of days are left for the G20 summit to take place under India's presidency. Key area of interest for G20 has been to discuss ways and means to bring those outside the formal banking system under the ambit of financial inclusion. Mr. Kohli, the G20 constitutes more than 80% of the global GDP today. We can say these are the most important countries in terms of output. With about 1.4 billion people in this grouping still unbanked, what is the significance of financial inclusion?
The importance of financial inclusion cannot be overemphasized because, your economic upliftment, the economic development of the country, the growth of the country basically depends on the financial inclusion of its citizens. If people are not part of the mainstream economic activity, even if they are part of the mainstream economic activity, but they are not included financially, which means they do not know about banking, they do not know about investments, they do not know about insurance, they do not have the basic financial literacy, that what is a bank account, what are the advantages of a bank account, what is a debit card, what is a credit card. If you ask me as an economic and financial analyst, for me, this is as essential as nutrition. Just the way you need nutrition to look after yourself, you at the same time need financial literacy, financial inclusion. Only when people are financially included, they will know that what they were lacking before. Because if you're not financially included, you've been living your own life at 0.4 billion people are still, they have been untouched by financial inclusion. So only when they will come into financial inclusion, they will know that what were they lacking, where were they missing. As part of G20 presidentship, India has shown to the world that yes, this can be done. And if you really want to achieve economic progress, if you really want to become an economic superpower, if you really want to propel your economic growth, financial inclusion is an absolute must, Anubha.
You've been talking about, of course, how India has shown the world that economic inclusion is a must and the ways to do it. So in the last few years, India has made significant progress in financial inclusion, be it the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana or the UPI. India has been at the forefront of financial empowerment of its people. In a way, we can say that India, under its G20 presidency, has been walking the talk so far as financial inclusion is concerned.
G20 could not have come at a better time for us because when we are leading the most powerful countries of the world, we are sitting at the president's post and, talking from there, it matters. And it matters even more when, as you said, we walk the talk, when we have shown to the world 500 million people being included under the Jan Dhan Yojana. I remember the days when Jan Dhan Yojana was introduced, and the bank accounts of these villagers, people from the rural belt, particularly from the remote areas of the country, were being opened. There was a lot of criticism showered on the government that what are these people going to do with the bank accounts? This is going to be of no use to them. There's going to be no money which is going to be parked in these bank accounts. And today, as we talk, 2 lakh crores is the total balance of the 500 million or 50 crore Jan Dhan accounts that have been achieved. And there are so many women. There were days when women used to park their, savings into the mattresses, in the pockets of some of the clothes hanging around in the cupboards. They were under the utensils. They were lying under a glass. I remember we've seen those days when women didn't know where to park their money. And I've seen the money getting lost, getting stolen, getting destroyed, and money doing nothing for them. And today, 4,000 rupees is the average balance in a Jan Dhan account, of the 50 crore accounts. You can imagine 225 to 30 crore bank accounts in India, and out of that, 50 crore accounts are Jan Dhan accounts. In the remotest corner of the country, there is a bank or there is a bank account. People, the JAM, the magic of JAM, the Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile, I think a deadly combination of these three things have really transformed the country, and this has been the key driver of financial inclusion in India. And I personally feel that India's economic prowess, India's economic growth today, we are the fastest growing economy around the world. We just saw the GDP numbers of 7.8%. Which is exceptional. Why this is exceptional? Because if you see the global growth, the global GDP progress, it is barely 2 to 3%. Some of the most developed part of the world, we talk of America, we talk of Europe. Europe is in recession or probably just about staying afloat. America is growing at about 2 to 3%. And a country like India with 1.4 billion population today is showing to the world that even after the crisis like COVID, even after a geopolitical major problem like Russia-Ukraine, you can convert this particular crisis into an opportunity. India will have much to showcase there that look, this particular financial inclusion has been one of the key drivers of our growth. And look at the UPI. I have also to mention very, very vociferously that UPI would be a very important topic which is going to come up in the G20 summit exceptionally. I mean, apart from the agenda which G20 has, I'm sure there are a lot of geopolitical, economic, cultural, social issues which will be discussed in G20. But UPI is going to stand out as an agenda in this G20 summit. 15 lakh crores of transactions in a month, 1,000 crores is number of transactions. I think this has been a marvelous achievement. And the beauty of these numbers which I just spoke of is that the more these numbers, the more is the speed of growth because it is spreading so rapidly across the country. I'm sure all these G20 participants, they are going to take away from India not just information about what India has done, but I'm sure they would also like to take home this technology. I can literally bet you as an economist, I mean, I rarely make such statements, but today I'm very confident in making this statement that UPI is one technology which is going to be a takeaway of this G20 summit.
You've been talking about UPI, Mr. Kohli. RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das, in fact, today, while lauding the Unified Payments System as a game changer in India's digital payment ecosystem, said that it has helped drive financial inclusion by bringing millions of unbanked individuals into the formal financial system. Do you think it's a stamp on the success of UPI in the country?
Absolutely. In fact, you'll be surprised that, we talk of MSMEs, we talk of micro, small and medium enterprises in India. We talk today, there's a separate ministry for MSMEs. And most of them, for the information of listeners of Akashvani, I would like to inform that most of these MSMEs are micros. They're small businesses, one or two people working, and they are practically spread in every part of the country. You will be surprised that for the people who believe that I need not have a bank account, why do I need a bank account today? Because of UPI, because when somebody is running a small business and when most of your customers would like to pay you through UPI, you are forced to have a bank account. So, what has happened is a very unique thing which has happened is that the growth is the other way around. That from banking to UPI is the normal way of going. But today, because of UPI, banking is growing because somebody needs to accept payments by UPI. So they say, please go and have a bank account because without bank account, UPI doesn't work. So I think it's been a cause-effect relationship between UPI and banking and various other financial technology products which are in the country, that one is becoming a cause for the other and the other becomes an effect of the other. And then the vice versa happens. The other becomes an effect and then there is a cause which is born. So it's been a cause-effect relationship and that is what is driving the force. I call this as a fintech multiplier effect because every time there are more people making UPI payments, the speed of growth of fintech in India also rises. So the more rapidly it penetrates into the country, more rapid is the growth of fintech in India. And I think this is the model, Anubha, which I spoke about, which I'm sure these G20 world leaders in the summit would like to talk about. They would like to carry this home. They would like to discuss with the Prime Minister and with the representatives of Reserve Bank of India and the relevant departments in Government of India who have been, included or who have been responsible for launching this whole system. So this is what financial inclusion is today.
India's G20 presidency has brought digital public infrastructure or DPI agenda to the table. There's now a wide recognition that DPI is an inclusive and efficient way to provide public service delivery, thereby transforming the lives of the poor in the country. What are the lessons here for the rest of the world, especially the developing countries?
Well, I think the lessons for rest of the world is especially not just developing country. I would, with your permission, I would like to go one step ahead. Even for the developed country, where there is a social security, one of the characteristics of a developed country is that there is social security. I mean, if somebody is unemployed, the government pays for it. The government makes sure that the person doesn't come on the street. The DBT, the direct benefit transfer methodology, which government has adopted through this UPI and Jan Dhan, I think that has created magic. In fact, I have a number statistics which states that most of the people who got 4,000 rupees average balance, if we talk about, that a lot of money has come by way of DBT. And these are under the various schemes of the government. These are under various schemes where government has directly transferred to the bank account of the people of the country. And I think not just the developing country, Anubha, as I said, I will move one step ahead, that even the developed part of the world would like to see that how by use of UPI, by having more and more of financial inclusion, government schemes can be implemented and we can reach out. And if a country of 1.4 billion people can reach out to its people, I think the remaining G20 nations, if we leave out China, do not have that big a population. So if a country of that size of population can do it, why can't you do it? So I think it's a lesson undoubtedly for emerging economies, for developing countries, but it's also going to be a lesson which is going to be taken by the developed economies. And I absolutely no doubt, as I said, I would like to reiterate that UPI is going to stand out in this G20 summit, Anubhav.
An important area of focus during India's G20 presidency has been to enhance financial solidarity with countries in the Global South. Global South has, been one thing that India has been focusing on a lot, inclusion of the Global South. Now, there are issues such as debt restructuring, among others, and there are concerns that if these issues are not tackled effectively, they could trigger a global recession and push millions into extreme poverty. What progress has been made in this direction, and do you expect a consensus on this under India's G20 presidency?
Well, I have no doubt that India would try its best, because if India follows a policy of Vasudev Kutumbakam, where one world, one family, we've seen the G20 slogans around the city. So if you talk of one family, I'm sure India is going to, definitely try and persist and convince rest of the world that financial security and debt restructuring should be taken care of. If you leave a section of your society behind who has been deprived of economic progress, I don't think it works very well for any economy. And for the people who borrowed from banks, or the people who've taken loans, today, if they are not in a position to pay, of course, a fine balance would have to be struck between handling of NPAs and debt restructuring, because there's a fine balance. And we should not forget, Anubha, that each country has got a very, very unique model. I mean, what happens in our country may not be happening in another country. The total debt of a country, the total borrowers of a country, total debt structure of a country, total quantum of debt of a country, total quality of debt of every country is going to be different. So, somewhere a balance would have to be struck. I really don't think that a single policy across the world, even for G20, would be good enough, which will work for every country. But at least some kind of consensus can be built around G20 that, yes, if there is a default in loan, let the person not be left behind in the society. Let that person not become an economically backward citizen or an economically backward business or whatever. That will be the focus, that make sure that even if somebody has defaulted, maybe the country can come to the rescue. Maybe a policy can be made where a debt restructuring can be done within, of course, the limitations which are there in countries' banking system and financial system.
India has been elected as co-chair of the Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion along with Italy for the next 3 years. Is that an acknowledgement of India as a rising economic power?
Absolutely. If you leave it to me at an informal level and in a very lighter way, I would say India should be made a permanent chair of financial inclusion, because what India has done has not happened anywhere in the world. And I really doubt if any country would come anywhere near that achievement as we speak. The JAM, which I spoke of, the Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, mobile revolution, the entire revolution which has happened in India. I mean, at this scale, it'll be very hard for any country to reach anywhere near. So I'm sure, India being made co-chair for financial inclusion, I think India should be given a permanent place as far as financial inclusion is concerned, because there's a lot for the world to learn from India. Fine, we may be having our own problems domestically. We are still trying our best to make sure that unemployment is banished from the country. We're trying our best to make sure that poverty is banished from this country. But at the same time, we have also achieved certain things which the world can really look up to. Today, we are on the moon. We are on our way to the point in sun where we can study sun as well. There are certain areas where India has made exceptional progress, and I think fintech is one, or finance is one, or financial inclusion is one, where world should learn. You don't rate a country by everything. You do pick up the things where India has made exceptional progress. So India, if you leave it to me, I would make India a permanent chair in financial inclusion. There's a lot for the world to take home from here. And I can tell you that at the end of the summit, when the summit ends on 10th of September, I can tell you that amongst the many things which the G20 participants are going to take back from India, fintech, UPI, financial inclusion, these would be in their pockets for sure, in their baggages for sure, without a doubt, Anubha.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Mr. Kohli.
Thank you so much.
You were listening to a discussion, Global Financial Inclusion Efforts under India's G20 Presidency. The participants were Sharat Kohli, Economic Analyst, and Anubha Rohatgi, Anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsttalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 9289 094044.